Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Colton, and today I want to talk about why I sold my Sony mirrorless camera in favor of predominantly shooting on an older Pentax DSLR camera. So I do also want to start out by saying that I am not a anti-mirrorless guy. I still have my Sony A7 III that I shoot these YouTube videos on, and who knows, maybe in the future I will have another mirrorless camera again. But I think when I lay out the reasons why I made this switch, it will make sense. But this also comes after just talking about how great the Sony A7 III was recently. I'll link that video in the description. And it really is an exceptional camera. So the three reasons why I would move away from such a great camera to an older camera, significantly so, is one, in terms of shooting style. The second point would be color science. And the third point would be cost. So without further ado, let's jump into these. And we'll start out with shooting style. So the A7 III is a highly versatile camera. And when I picked it up, I needed a highly versatile camera because I was shooting, events, corporate events and workshops. I was doing portraits. I was doing live events, comedy, wrestling, live theater. I was also shooting abandoned places, kind of like series. And so I really needed a camera that could keep up with these changing environments. And I needed to know when I go to do this event or when I go shoot this performance, regardless of what the environment is, I'm gonna be able to get the shots that I need. And so I needed a camera that was versatile, that had exceptional low light performance, great autofocus, great long-lasting battery. And that Sony A7 III was really the answer. And I would actually argue that even by today's standards, the A7 III is still one of the best in its class of cameras. And that says a lot because it is a 6-year-old camera as of the making of this video. But again, my shooting style has changed and I'm no longer shooting these very versatile environments. I'm now shooting mostly in the studio, either studio portraits or even more so than that, my Candy Art series, a lot of still life type shots where I'm controlling the lighting. It's in a controlled environment. And so having a versatile camera isn't really as useful. I could still shoot with that camera and do the Candy Art, but it wouldn't be the best tool for the job. And that's where, as my photography has moved from very versatile needs to very niche needs, so too the equipment kind of has to change to follow suit so that I can get the best out of what I'm doing. And so the Sony really wouldn't be the best camera for that style of shooting. And that's where a newer, not a newer camera, an older camera in this case, comes into play. And that's the Pentax 645D, a much more niche camera. It's higher megapixels. It has some benefits that we'll discuss here in a moment, but it's really a better tool for the job than the Sony. So the Sony is still a phenomenal camera. It's just not the best tool for this specific job. Now that also brings me over to point 2, which is color science. Sony has fine color science, okay? I'm not a anti-Sony color science, but it is specific. It's a much more muted palette. Some people will describe it as kind of like clinical, and I can definitely see that. And the Pentax side, there's a lot more color pop to the image. And that's what I'm really looking for, is more of a colorful image, a lot more pop, things of that nature. And so the color science fits what I am looking to do. My personal style, my personal tastes are better replicated by the color science that the Pentax has than the Sony. Could we get to the same place? Possibly, but it will take a lot more time editing the Sony files to get them to look more in line with what I'm looking for. Whereas on the Pentax camera, the images coming right out of the camera are already within the ballpark of what I'm looking to do. And so when I go to edit, I only need to do minor edits to really just punch up the image and get it to that final point. Whereas on the Sony, I almost feel like I have to fight against the camera to try to get the images to look the way I want them to look. And then they never quite get there. And I'm always kind of left feeling like, I don't know, there's still something missing. And I don't feel that way when I work with the files from the Pentax camera. So it saves me a lot of time, but it also gets me a lot closer to what I'm looking for. Now, not everyone's gonna like the files out of the Pentax. Some people are gonna say the exact same thing that I've just said in favor of the Sony camera. And so it really does come down to personal taste, personal style. The Pentax, the color science I'm getting from that is much more in line with my current style than the Sony's color science is. And so it's a no-brainer on that front. All right, and so that brings us to the final point here, which is cost. And I knew I wanted to jump into medium format, but the cost of medium format is generally really, really high. And so I tried to do a lot of research into, really what is the best camera that I can get without spending too much money. And really that's the Pentax 645D. It's the camera that gives you the best image quality, the best resolution, while also being one of the cheapest options that you can find. So it's got a 40 megapixel sensor, which is still really solid by today's standards. But also I was able to find this camera body only for $1,050. And that is super cheap. Even the 645Z is kind of around the $2,000, maybe under, depending on where you find it. And then like a GFX 50S, that might run, cheapest I've seen, it's like $1,800 body only. The difference is that with the Fujifilm, you're paying about $1,000 to $2,000 per lens. And so that $1,800 camera body is really about a $4,000 camera once you find a lens for it. And that's assuming you don't just go with the kit lens. With the Pentax, you're paying, I found one for $1,000, but then also the lens are a lot cheaper. And you can get razor sharp, mint condition Pentax lens for like $200 to $300 per lens. So I got a 45 to 85 for $200 and a 120 macro for $300. So altogether, I paid right about $1,600 for the body plus 2 lens, and that's $200 cheaper than just the GFX body only. So it's just, comparable resolution, a phenomenal camera with really wonderful color science, but you can also get it fairly cheap. And that was really why I ended up going specifically with the 645D as opposed to a Fujifilm GFX that is a much more modern mirrorless camera. Now, who knows, maybe one day I will still pick up a GFX, but for now, this Pentax is really taking the images that I want, and so there's really no need to dream about a different camera. So those are the reasons why I specifically went with a Pentax 645D, but also why I opted to finally sell my Sony A7 III. And honestly, at the end of the day, the Pentax is a more niche camera that fits what I'm shooting. It has phenomenal color science, phenomenal image quality, and it's a camera that I feel like really resonates and helps me get the images that I'm looking to get. It resonates with my style of shot and the creative, artistic voice that I'm trying to cultivate and create. So it's been a phenomenal camera to use. It's also been an annoying camera to use. If you want to know more about my experience with the Pentax, I do have a playlist about that camera that I'll link in the description here. But if you're curious about any additional info that I haven't shared in this video, or if you want to give your thoughts on that change from the Sony to the Pentax, do drop that in the comments below. And then, if you liked the video, do give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate you guys' support. Hit the subscribe button if you want to see more content like this. But for now, I'm Colton. I'll see you in the next one.